My name is Emer Kennedy, I'm from Teagasc Moor Park, and today I'm going to talk to you about turning grass into money. There's a fantastic opportunity for farmers to increase the profitability of their enterprise by increasing the proportion of grazed grass in the diet of the dairy cow. If we look at the average grass growth curve from Moor Park over the last 10 years, we can see that quite a lot of grass is produced here in the early spring or during the mid-season period, but during the spring here there's a period of deficit, and also in the autumn. Grass growth has also been measured at different areas throughout the country, such as Ballyhaise in Cavan and Clonakilty in County Cork. And there's one thing that's common to all these sites, and that is that they produce the same amount of grass. The only difference being the distribution of that grass, that more of the grass is produced perhaps mid-season in more northerly regions. So today we're going to talk about the three seasons: spring, mid-season and autumn. So firstly, to look at the spring. In spring, the recommendation is to turn cows out to grass directly post-calving and to use the spring rotation planner to budget out the area. So from when cows calf here in early February until March, when grass growth is greater than demand, or the amount of grass that cows need. So the spring rotation planner essentially breaks down the spring period into 30% grazed by the 1st of March, 66% grazed by the 17th of March and 100% grazed by the 7th of April. Farm cover is also needed in conjunction with the spring rotation planner to assess how much grass is on the farm and what level of supplementation is required. If the grass growth is poor during the spring, the start of the second rotation will need to be extended. If we look at the target post-grazing heights that should be achieved during spring, what we found from some recent experiments is that if we compare post-grazing heights of 3.5 centimetres to 2.7 centimetres, that milk yield is increased by 10% per cow and 17% milk solids per cow when grass is grazed to 3.5 centimetres. So this would be the recommendation. If we move on to the mid-season, here we want to make our winter feed requirements and balance supply and demand. The target pre-grazing herbage mass at this point should be 1,300 to 1,600 kilos of dry matter per hectare. What we would ideally say is 1,400 kilos of dry matter per hectare. To achieve this, rotation length should be 18 to 21 days with a target post-grazing height of 4 to 4.5 centimetres. Grass can be allocated in 24 to 36 hour grass allocations during the main grazing season. To monitor your grass supply on the farm during the main grazing season, the grass wedge is used, and this helps identify surpluses and deficits. So if we move over here and just look at the grass wedge, we can see that the target pre-grazing yield is 1,400 kilos of dry matter per hectare, and this black demand line here is set at 1,400 and it goes down to 100 kilos dry matter per hectare, which is the residual. If the bars are above this line, this means that there is a surplus of grass on the farm, but if they're below the line, it means that there is a deficit on the farm. If we move over to the autumn, we can see that we're using the 60-40 plan in autumn. That is to have 60% of the farm closed by the 7th of November, with the remaining 40% closed by the 1st of December. Now, depending on the location within the country, this can change. So, for example, here we start closing our paddocks from the 10th to the 15th of October, whereas in more northerly regions or slower grass growing regions, that can be about the 1st of October. To ensure that you have sufficient grass to keep cows out for as long as possible in the autumn, farm covers need to be built up from early August onwards. The target pre-grazing yield in autumn should be kept below 2,500 kilos of dry matter per hectare. If it goes above this, there is surplus on the farm, but all surpluses should be removed by the end of August to ensure that this grass is back into the grazing rotation before the farm is closed. The highest farm cover is achieved in mid-September, and if supplementation is required if there's a deficit in the farm, well then bale silage should probably be used in preference to concentrate, particularly in a quota scenario. Okay, so we'll just move on to some new knowledge, or the latest research that has been completed at Moor Park. What we've been looking at is different pre-grazing herbage mass on the swards. So we've been looking at various different levels, and what we found is that when you graze swards that are less than 1,100 kilos of dry matter per hectare, this is when the sward is at the 2-leaf stage. Typically it takes the sward about 14 days to get to this stage, and if you constantly or continually graze at the 2-leaf stage, or the 1,100 kilos of dry matter per hectare, the grass runs out of reserves or energy, so you run into a deficit situation and you need to take large measures to correct this. Ideally, what we would like is that the sward is grazed at 1,400 kilos of dry matter per hectare, which is the 3-leaf stage. and this will support a high level of intake as well as a high level of cow production. What we need is to strike a balance between herbage growth and leaf yield. A higher leaf yield does not necessarily result in increased growth, and during the mid-season we would like to target a post-grazing height of about 4 centimetres, because again this strikes the balance between grass growth and cow production. So in summary, spring grazing, we want to graze to 3.5 centimetres, use the spring rotation planner to budget out the area that we need until the first week in April, and each extra day at grass is worth €2.70 per cow per day. Mid-season, if we keep our pre-grazing yields at 1,400 kilos of dry matter per hectare, this will increase cow performance and ensure a high level of quality in the sward, which is worth €1.50 per cow per day. Our target post-grazing height is 4 to 4.5 centimetres, and we use the wedge to identify surpluses and deficits. And then finally, in autumn, we want to use the 60-40 plan to budget out our grass and maintain pre-grazing yields less than 2,500 kilos of dry matter per hectare, and each extra day at grass in the autumn is worth €2.10 per cow per day.